Live with CDP, a weekly sports and entertainment podcast live on YouTube, Facebook Live, Twitter, and on audio via Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Spotify, and Anchor FM. Now here's your host, Chris Palme.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Live with CDP Sports Talk, Season 4, Episode 42 on this Tuesday, October 18th, 2022. And Live with CDP Sports Talk is sponsored by Barry Cullen Chevrolet Dealership at 905 Woodlawn Road West in the Guelph Auto Mall. Check out barrycullen.com for their newest selection of new GM vehicles and pre-owned vehicles as well. And guys, you can also now pre-order the all-electric Silverado. So check out barrycullen.com to do that, or give them a call at 519-824-0210. And again, thank you to Barry Cullen Chevrolet here in Guelph for sponsoring Live with CDP Sports Talk as well. And I'm looking forward to my show tonight, guys. Bear with me, and I'm going to bring on my guests. And I'm going to have my guest tonight. His name is Mike Patton. He's the host and producer of the Touring the AFC South podcast, and he's also a freelance journalist. And he does some bylines for the Black N and V, which I'll ask him a little bit more about. And also, I think he does some work for the Tennessee Tribune. But he's also going to come on and focus on the 4 NFL teams that play in the AFC South. So 1 second, guys, and I'm going to bring on Mike Patton. Good evening, Mike. How you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Good. Well, thank you so much again for giving me some time to come on my show tonight.
Yeah, no problem. No problem at all.
So, hey, it's a crazy time of the year for sports, especially with the NFL, CFL here in Canada, and college football as well.
Definitely. And then now the NBA starting up tonight, so that just kind of throws it all in a tailspin.
Got to ask you this, Mike. NBA, you got a favorite team, favorite player?
Well, my favorite team is the Chicago Bulls. It's been that team since I was a kid. No, I did not become a fan when Michael Jordan won championships. It was before the championships that I became a fan of Chicago Bulls. And one of my favorite players in the NBA, I've got two, actually, that are two of my favorites. And people will probably, the obvious one is LeBron James. I know he's one of my favorite players, but I don't kind of list him as one of my favorite players. So that's the obvious one. The two guys that I look at is Jimmy Butler of the Miami Heat and Pascal Siakam of the Toronto Raptors.
Good choice was Pascal Siakam. Now, you're going to hate me because not just I'm a Philadelphia Eagles fan, I'm a Detroit Pistons fan, and I was a Pistons fan since they drafted Isaiah Thomas back in 1981. So that rivalry between the Pistons and the Bulls in the 80s was crazy. And I think the Pistons should have three-peated before the Bulls did. But the 88 Lakers had a little help in Game 7, by the way.
Help or not, the history books don't ever lie.
I know. I still can't watch it to this day, but that was a great rivalry, and I'm hoping. I think the Bulls are on their way up, and I think the Pistons, with their young talent and with Dwayne Casey, I'm hoping the Pistons can take another step up this year and even compete for maybe a 7th or 8th spot in the Eastern Conference.
I would say that Jalen Duren, a guy from the University of Memphis, is a guy that some people compared to Dwight Howard in a sense. So I think he'll be a big factor eventually on that team. And, of course, all the young pieces like Cade Cunningham there. Of course, you do have a veteran, Alec Burks. So they'll cause a few things. They might be battling for the play-in position game. I think they could do that at least.
Definitely. Yeah, you're right. And then the NHL just started up last week as well. So if you're a sports fan like I am, and I imagine you are, it's the best time of the year. Now I got to ask you this. Are you a college football fan too? Do you follow college football?
Yes, I am. And I'm very, very happy after this weekend's game. We broke a long streak against a very, very successful team in college football. That'd be the Alabama Crimson Tide. I am a Tennessee ball fan, been one since I was a kid. So it was very, very good to see Tennessee take down Alabama.
Alabama.
Didn't like the score, but did like that they won the game.
I was going to say that was crazy scene. That sort of reminded me of when the Bills finally beat the Patriots, because the Patriots, I think, at one point beat the Buffalo Bills under Tom Brady and Belichick era 15 straight times. And those fans, that was crazy, man. But it's good for the sport too, man. And I'm so happy for Tennessee fans.
Yes, very happy. And a lot of Tennessee fans were kind of skeptical when they hired Josh Heupel from Central Florida. But the Danny White, Josh Heupel connection moved from Central Florida to Tennessee, and they kept on winning. And largely in part to Hendon Hooker, who, by the way, was a graduate transfer from Virginia Tech to Tennessee, and he had an additional year of eligibility. He could have went to the draft last year, but he decided to come back for a sixth season. So that's huge for the Tennessee Vols and just what the continuity they had with that offense.
And I'm a Michigan Wolverines fan out of the Big Ten, and nice win over Penn State, 41-17. And what I like what Michigan's doing, they're playing old school football with that offensive line and the running game. And I'm a huge fan of Blake Corum. I don't know, what's your thoughts on the Michigan Wolverines as an outsider, as a non-fan?
Okay. If we wait a couple more seconds, we'll see Quorum running across the goal line again. But as far as the Michigan Wolverines, I do like them. I think they're definitely a physical football team. However, I do wonder when it comes to the times where the running game's not working, can they beat you in the passing game? I do wonder that, and I do wonder as far as the defense, can they continue to be as tough as they have been when the tougher games come along? And of course, that big game down the line against a certain team down south. Yep. Will be a big one indeed. Especially it's in Ohio State this year, so definitely be a rowdy game.
That's one game I wish I'm not going to be able to do it this year, but next year I have to go see a Michigan Ohio State game. And I've been to the Big House, and it's an amazing experience having 110,000 people in that stadium. College football, I think, is as big as the NFL, or if not bigger in the states. In some states.
Yeah, definitely, especially in a state like Alabama. I mean, they don't have a pro team. So, definitely it's bigger, in my opinion, than NFL in some states. Not all, but some states. So, yeah, definitely you're onto something there for sure.
Alabama still a contender for the national championship after this loss.
Definitely. Because you also have to remember they do go through the SEC West, which that's going to have Ole Miss over there. It's going to have Mississippi State. They still have to see. They beat Texas A&M, and Texas A&M is not necessarily great this year, but they won some games and done a few things. They already beat Arkansas, so they do have an Ole Miss and Ole Miss to look at, and the Mississippi State to look at. And they'll more than likely be representing the SEC West in the SEC championship game. So that'll be a matchup against either Georgia or Tennessee, in my opinion.
How do you like the setup for the national championship? Are you a fan of the current system, or would you like to see some changes in the future?
Honestly, it's fine the way it is now. I mean, you keep expanding it, you keep doing this, keep doing that, and I'm like, look, no one's all going to be happy. That's just the way things are. So, as you keep expanding it, keep doing this, keep doing that, it's giving money to the NCAA, but it's also, trying to, I guess, placate people that aren't happy or didn't win this game, or, they did this, and so we ought to be there too. If it all gets taken care of if you win games. That's the biggest thing, people. Win games. You don't win games, you're not going to be there.
It's a business. It's a business too. And I was going to say, is there any teams that have surprised you? So before we get to the AFC questions and a little bit about yourself, is there any college teams that have kind of surprised you so far at this point?
I would say that Oklahoma has definitely surprised me, and not in a good way. I did not think their defense would get lit up as much as they have with Brent Venables being the head coach. He's the former defensive coordinator of the Clemson Tigers. So that has surprised me some. Let's see, another team. I would say Ole Miss. Kind of. I didn't expect them to have it quite together as much as they have now. With Jackson Dart, the USC transfer, being the quarterback, I didn't expect that, but it is what it is there with them. So I give you, kind of one of the good and kind of one with the bad. So that's my good and bad for college football that I'm kind of a little surprised by.
Okay, and we love football here in Canada, but I don't think people here follow the U.S. college football as much as hockey. They do here hockey, but for me, I'm CFL, NFL, and college football and stuff like that. And I'm looking forward to. I know Michigan's taking on Michigan State Saturday night. Who's Tennessee taking on next?
Tennessee has got a tough game against UT Martin. They don't have a tough game this week. They have they're playing against actually my alma mater is UT Martin, which they are a FCS school. So that'll be a game that can kind of rest up, get a few things in, stuff like that. Then they have I believe Kentucky and then Georgia. So the next two games after this one are going to be physical ball games because Kentucky is a physical team and we know Georgia is a physical team. So, we'll see what happens. But boy, oh boy, it does not get easier for the UT Balls.
Any trap games? Because I know some people don't believe in them, but I do as a sports fan. Do you think there's a possibility this game could be a trap game for them?
Potentially, because coming down from the high of beating Alabama for the first time in forever. Also, you've got to think these are 18 to, in most cases, 18 to 22-year-old kids. They're going to be up and down with emotion. So it wouldn't surprise me if they come out flat and then pick it up as the game goes on. That would not surprise me at all. And then, of course, even though Kentucky was ranked in the top 5 to kind of, earlier in the season, that still could potentially be a trap game just because Georgia is right there knocking on the door next week.
Final point here. Right now, who would be your Heisman Trophy winner be right now if it was announced right now as of October 18th?
I'm a little biased. It'd probably be Hendon Hooker. I mean, the game he had against Alabama, sure, he had an interception. Sure, they had a fumble, but he was electric out there, and they could do nothing with him. And, the true mark of a Heisman Trophy winner, especially if it's not one in Alabama, is when you have Nick Saban befuddled about your offense after the game, saying basically we couldn't figure out ways to stop them.
Wow. Okay. I'm a little biased with Blake Corum, but I think your pick's an excellent pick as well. So we'll see what happens there.
Yeah, college football loves the quarterback. You know that one.
That's true. That's absolutely. I can't disagree with you there. Hey, since I'm based out of Toronto, can you just tell my audience here in Ontario, just outside of Toronto, just a little bit about yourself? And you already mentioned where you went to school. Did you have any mentors when you were first starting up or getting into broadcasting and being a journalist?
Honestly, I did not. I still probably say I have people that I ask questions of and, ask advice of or things like that. But I wouldn't really say that I have a for sure real deal mentor. It's basically I didn't go to school for journalism, by the way. I actually went to school. I have a marketing degree. So, I went to school for that. And actually me writing started basically when I was coming back from Atlanta, which Atlanta, for those that aren't familiar, it's about 4 hours away. You go a couple hours to the east towards Chattanooga and then a couple hours south. So coming back from Atlanta, there was a guy on 92.9 The Game, which is a radio station down there that does sports. And it was talking about a story someone wrote. And I was in the car. I was heated about it. And I was like, I could have wrote that. I'm like, come on, I could have wrote that. Come on, man. But my wife looks at me, and then she was then my fiance at the time. She looks at me and says, well, why don't you write it? So at that point, I came back, started a blog, and then have eventually kind of developed and paid attention and took notes and kind of developed my own writing style from there. And as far as podcasting, it's something that I avoided literally for about 3 years before I started it. Because people would tell me, "Oh, you need to do a podcast. You got a voice for a podcast. You got a lot of knowledge you can put out there for a podcast." And people were like, they're telling me that, and I didn't really buy into it. And I was thinking to myself, "Am I going to be starting a podcast and then get tired of it?" You know, and that's where I kind of thought about it, and I didn't want to start something and then not finish it. So that's where I kind of was stopping myself, and then started it about a year and a half, almost. What's going to be heading into 2 years in January or February, I believe, or might be more than that. I can't remember. But anyway, it's started it up and just went from 1 episode a week to 2 episodes a week to now I'm doing 4 episodes a week during the regular season. So I love it.
Congratulations. And I don't have a journalism degree either, law and security. And a couple years ago, I was volunteering with a local basketball team. They needed a camera operator. I decided to do it. They actually paid me for my camera work, and it led me to doing volunteer work with Rogers TV here. And then I told the producer, I like doing broadcasting, the TV side. I'm going to start my own podcast during the pandemic. And tonight, you're my 207th episode since March of 2020.
Nice. Wow, I haven't made quite the 200 yet. I'm at 111, 112. But
you'll get there.
It's nice, man.
I love it.
Get rolling.
I love doing this. I have a passion for it. And for the first 4 months, I couldn't get guests on. But once you get one guest on, and then people see your body of work on here on YouTube and other platforms. And my goal is to get into radio. And I've been very lucky and to have guests such as yourself come on tonight as well.
Well, hey, keep pushing towards that goal. And you never know, radio might not be the end game. It might end up being just a gateway.
Absolutely. And I was going to say, can you tell my audience just a little bit about your current podcast show and when it's on and stuff like that as well, and what platforms?
Sure. My podcast is called Touring the AFC South. The idea kind of came about because I kind of looked around and I noticed that everyone is talking the NFL, but no one's actually focused on a specific division and does a podcast specific on a division. Plus, I live in Nashville. I see the Titans, I see the Colts, I see the Texans, I see the Jaguars a lot. So I'm like, okay, why not do a show about the AFC South? No one else is doing one. I literally looked on Google and I found like maybe two shows that are actually doing touring that are talking about the AFC South. So I was like, well, I fit right in there. So that's how I kind of got started into it. And, I bring on guests that are from it, that are, have teams or cover teams that are in the AFC South. Like, for example, ESPN's Tryon Davenport. I've had him on. I've had AJ Jones on. I've had him on. I've had Kim Davis. They cover the AJ and Kim covered the Houston Texans. I've had, let's see, who else have I had on? I've had, trying to think who else. I've had some other people on, but Jake Arthur, who covers the Indianapolis Colts, and I've had a few other people. Charge it to my mind, not my heart, people, if you're listening. But anyway, so I've had them on and kind of also branched out to people that are outside of the division or playing a team in the division. I've had like Jamel Hill on my show before, Warren Moon. I mean, just the list goes on of people I've had on just because. Trying to get people within the division and also people that are outside the division to kind of bring unique perspective that maybe wouldn't be there. And, so that's kind of what I do. Also, beginning of the show, I do a get it off your chest segment. So that right there could be anything. It could be anything. It could be football, basketball, something just happened in media, whatever. And it's my time to kind of get something off my chest for, it could be 5 minutes, could be 10 minutes, or I could invite a guest that actually comes on and gives their rant of something that they need to get off their chest. I've done that before too. So, that's basically kind of what my show is in a nutshell. I do produce and host my own show, put together all the scripts, cut up all the tape, all those different things is done by me.
One thing I need to learn how to do is edit my shows. That's the one thing I still need to learn on here. Hey, I was going to ask you, was that Warren Moon you actually said you had on? Warren Moon?
Yes. I've had Warren Moon on twice on my show.
Wow. Yeah, he follows me on Twitter, but I was going to say he also is a 5-time Grey Cup champion with the CFL Edmonton Eskimos back from 78 to 82. And to me, if he played in this era, he would have 90,000 yards passing as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I asked him about that one time, and he was like, "Oof." He said that. I was like, "Yeah, he's having flashbacks of playing right now."
Much different game back in the 70s and 80s in both CFL and the NFL than it is now. But yeah, that's awesome, and I love hearing my guest stories about how they get into stuff. And one thing too, Mike, I was going to say, people say, "Oh, you're doing a podcast at home. It's easy, a piece of work, easy or whatever," but it's a lot of work. Producing your own show, booking guests is a full-time job, and promoting your show as well as a full-time job.
Yeah, people don't quite understand that part of it. Also, getting sponsors too, because you do have to. The one thing I also do, I didn't mention it, is I actually record my own commercials. So I get my sponsors, kind of give them to give me the information, and I kind of break down the information. Like, okay, cool, I can record something, let them listen to it, see if they like it, then we kind of negotiate from there and go from there. So I've done that as well. So that's another thing that I do too, and is, what you also can do, just to give you kind of a pointer in terms of editing your show. What you can do is, find you a stopping point where you change subjects or things like that. That's where you can kind of cut the audio. You can do that on, you say that you have your show on Anchor, and Anchor has some tools you can actually cut it as well, and maybe throw commercials in or music or whatever you want to do to kind of, I guess, break the monotony of just having a whole show and, right then and there.
I just, by the way, I just finally had my first sponsor a month ago from the local GM dealership here. And right now they're just trusting me to put the ads on, like just basically whatever I have to do. And I tell them constantly, if there's something else you want me to mention about vehicles with GM, to let me know. But it was a great feeling to finally get my first sponsor. It took 2.5 years, but now I'm working on some more sponsors as well.
Good stuff. Good stuff. The more sponsors, the more people know about your show, because who knows, they may have you on in their dealership.
And I'm a customer of theirs as well, so I just bought a new vehicle from them as well, and it's a product that I like too. It helps when you have a sponsor that you have business dealings with as well.
Right. Correct.
Absolutely. I get it. This leads to my next question. And we'll get to the AFC South as a division as well, I promise. What are your thoughts on the 2022 NFL season so far? And which teams have been surprises and which teams have been kind of disappointments so far across the league?
Well, I can't say surprises and not say New York. New York, New York, New York, New York Giants, New York Jets. Only 3 losses between both teams. 4-2 New York Jets. I don't think anybody saw that. If you saw that, you need to go play the lottery right now. So, the Jets are just doing it with physical football up front and a running back in Bryce Hall that they happened to find, which, great find, by the way. But, and the New York Giants, I mean, I can't explain it. They're just leaning on Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley, a lot of Saquon Barkley to win games, and their defense has just been outstanding. So, those 2 teams have definitely surprised me. As far as disappointment, I would say definitely the Packers. The Packers are a disappointment. I know they're dealing with new receivers. Devontae Adams is gone, but their offense just looks inept at times, and you would think at some point they kind of pick it up. But just right now, it just doesn't seem to be kind of clicking for them. Now, if you flip over to the other conference, they also have a connection to the Green Bay Packers, which is their head coach, Nathaniel Hackett. The Denver Broncos. That offense doesn't look bad. It looks putrid. I mean, the first time it actually looked good was on Monday Night Football against the Chargers. Other than that, I mean, they're still trying to figure things out. He's still trying to figure out how to use Russell Wilson, which I don't know how he's not figuring that out yet. But, it just is. You have too many offensive weapons. You have Jared Jeudy. You have Cortland Sutton, KJ Hamler. You got a tight end that just came back, and Solsich, I think. I can't remember what his last name, but he's a rookie from UCLA, and he was dealing in the first half in terms of tight end. He was running all kinds of routes. They could not guard him. Then you get to the second half, you can't score. It just, to me, it falls more on Nathaniel Hackett, I think, trying to figure things out than it does actually on Russell Wilson. Now, I'm not saying Russell Wilson is not guilty of a few things himself, but ultimately the head coach is the one that's got to figure those things out and put them in position to succeed.
Does he last the season, or is he fired in the next couple weeks?
Depends on the guaranteed money, but I would say more than likely he'll be there. At the end of the season, that'd be another question mark in itself, but he'll last the season though.
And I want to ask you about this one as well. Josh
Mm-hmm.
McDaniels with the Las Vegas Raiders, who were supposed to contend in the AFC West this year.
I didn't expect them to be like great this year because I remember the Josh McDaniels that coached the Denver Broncos, and he basically ran Kyle Orton out of town for a Tim Tebow. He ran Brandon Marshall out of town. He ran a Jay Cutler out of town. He ran all those guys out of town and got worse offensively, but then wants to call himself an offensive genius. Come on, man. Come on. And it seems like to me, he hasn't learned from those lessons either. From it wouldn't surprise me if some of these weapons that are on that team start disappearing because he thinks he's smarter than the average guy. So it just, to me, I do not like him as a head coach. Be an offensive coordinator. Live happy doing that. Don't touch the head coaching gig because you ain't got it.
I think Mr. Devontae Adams is probably regretting going to the Raiders. Sometimes the grass isn't always greener on the other side.
That's true, but he's not regretting that payday. He's definitely not regretting that.
Good point. Good point there too. But like I said, yeah, I agree with your picks on the Jets and Giants. But if you had to choose one of those teams to definitely make the playoffs, who would you take, Giants or the Jets? If only one out of the two can make it. Putting you on the spot here.
I'll take the Giants. Reason why I'll take the Giants, and I know it's going to sound crazy because the Giants do have to take on the Eagles and they do have to take on the Cowboys still one more time. But look at look at the AFC. The Jets still have to take on the Buffalo Bills twice, and I'm pretty sure they have some other matchups that are going to be pretty difficult too. So, to me, I would say the Giants are going to make it more than the Jets would make it, because they're in the NFC and the Jets are in the AFC.
NFL Coach of the Year right now, if it was awarded.
That would be Soriani for the Eagles. By
Eagles,
far,
wow.
Coach of the Year. I would give him Coach of the Year. I actually had him as Coach of the Year before the season started.
Really? Wow. I assumed you'd maybe go with Brian Dable because the Giants have been such a mess of an organization, and now they look like they're a playoff contender this year.
I would say that, but I think, right, and he definitely has a very, very big argument for that. But I still would go with Soriani at this point. I mean, the Eagles, they had high expectations and they're living up to those expectations, which, a lot of times when teams have high expectations, they don't really live up to them quite as well. So
that's true. And Soriani, I have to admit, when he was hired to replace Doug Peterson a couple years ago, I was like, oh my God, I just didn't think too much of it, but he's been a really good hire, and the players seem to like playing for him, and they seem to be a very disciplined team. They're not taking a lot of penalties. He's got them to be smart about stuff as well. Discipline. They're a disciplined football team.
Yeah, they're definitely doing the things the right way. And the thing I like the most about that team is not the things that he's done, but things that Howie has done in terms of putting together the pieces on the field. You got veteran players that are still contributing but not playing as many plays, and you got younger players coming in there and picking up the slack in those instances too. And you got that perfect blend of that on a team that's contending. So you're turning over your roster, but you're still keeping those veterans to kind of steady the ship and teach people the Philadelphia Eagles way. So it's definitely a good balancing act that Howie has done as the architect of this team.
Absolutely agree. My biggest concern right now is their O line with Lane Johnson now with a concussion. Landon Dickerson has left the game with an injury the other night, and I think Jordan, the big guy, Jordan Mahalaya, I think that's how you pronounce his name. He's been dealing with injuries as well. So I'm just hoping this bye week will give them enough time to get healthy for the Steelers game.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what they do. But the good thing for them is that Mr. Watt is not in there. If he was in there, I'd be more concerned for the Pittsburgh Steelers game. But since he's not in there, you can focus more of your attention on Cam Hayward.
Absolutely. And this leads to my next question I wanted to ask you, Mike. Overall thoughts on the AFC South division so far in 2022? A little bit about Houston, Tennessee, Indianapolis, and Jacksonville, who's kind of come back to earth after starting out 2-0.
Well, at the beginning of the year, everyone expected it to be Tennessee, Indianapolis, and then the rest of the teams in the division. However, Houston fights hard. They just don't know how to win yet. They don't have the talent their level, and then plus they don't know how to win. So this year is about building a culture for Houston. As far as Jacksonville, same thing about building a culture, but they did pay a lot of money to a lot of pieces. So, they're expecting a little bit more return. That's the biggest thing for them is continuing to grow as a team. And I think they still can be a dangerous team. Just those couple of losses they had against Philadelphia and against Houston, Trevor Lawrence turned the football over. You can't do that and win ball games. He looked like the guy they thought he was in the first two games against the Indianapolis Colts. But, I think they'll surprise some people. I still think they can still reach and manage 8 wins in the AFC South, or just in the AFC in general. As far as Indianapolis and Tennessee, they were both two teams that I think people kind of rated a little bit too high, just based off all the turnover and change they had going on. Now, Indianapolis is trying to kind of starting to find themselves. However, I would not be depending on Matt Ryan to throw it 58 times to win a game again. And as far as Tennessee, they've kind of found themselves and gone back to basics, which, it's kind of helped them put 3 in a row. So, the overall thoughts is, it's not necessarily the strongest division, but the two teams that I thought would be at the top are sitting right at the top right now, with Jacksonville still trying to figure themselves out and Houston trying to develop a culture.
I was going to say, I shouldn't say that. I'm trying to get rid of that catchphrase on here. The Colts got off to a bad start, but they're now 3-2-1. Do you find that Frank Wright and their coaching staff have now finally got Matt Ryan more comfortable in that system?
Well, they've gotten more comfortable. The one big thing that I noticed that they did was they went with more quick passing because the running game is, just to be honest, it hasn't been the same this year for them, especially with the chaos going on up front with them trying to figure out who their 5 are going to be. So what they went with was quick passing. You notice you didn't really see very many 5-7 step drops from him. You saw a lot of shorter drops, a lot of quick releases to kind of be an extension of the running game. Of course, their guy, Deion Jackson, didn't necessarily get like 50 yards, but he had 10 catches for 79 yards as their running back. He was their second leading receiver. So, to me, they've kind of figured themselves out, but I would say they haven't figured themselves out enough, to me, in my opinion, to kind of beat the Titans. The Titans have kind of figured themselves out just a little bit more. And plus, I don't trust Frank Wright when it comes to big time decisions. He tends to have some decisions that make you scratch your head and figure out what is he doing. But it seems like the rest of the league has kind of caught on to doing those decisions that kind of make you scratch your head now.
As for the Titans, how big of a loss was it? Well, they obviously traded A.J. Brown to the Eagles, but trading Brown and Julio Jones going to Tampa Bay, how much of an impact was that on the Titans' 0-2 start this year?
Well, it was an impact because they're still learning each other. They were still learning each other at the time. Did not, look very well. They did bring in Robert Woods from the Los Angeles Rams, which he's a veteran wide receiver that can make some plays happen. They had Treylon Burks. Now Treylon Burks is hurt right now. He's out with turf toe, and I think he's on his 3rd of his 4 games being out on IR with turf toe. But Robert Woods has kind of got more comfortable, and it kind of it was a big loss at first, but I think now it's kind of helping them kind of figure out the rest of their team and their plan and mode of attack. To be honest, and I think as the season goes on, and like I thought before the season, that they'll get more and more comfortable with each other, and the passing game will get better, as well as the rest of the offense. It's not going to be a smooth start. I think probably around that game 9, you'll probably see about the best that offense is going to be at that point. To be honest, same thing with the Colts.
The 41-7 loss to the Bills, was that a wake up call to the for the Titans in your opinion?
Oh, definitely was. I mean, they had a team meeting after that game, I believe, or some kind of impromptu team meeting, and then they kind of extended into the week. And one thing that Mike Vrabel said is they got to get back to basics. He didn't make any excuses for getting their behinds whooped. He just said, "Hey, we just got to get back to basics. Do the basic things," in which they have done, which turned out 3 straight wins for them. So it hasn't been necessarily pretty in all 3 wins, but they've just figured things out a little bit more. So it definitely was a wake up call, and something that let them know that, hey, we're not playing to the standard that we set and that we expect each and every week.
Jaguars and Texans, obviously they're probably not going to be even 500 this year. Do you feel they're going to be on the right path in the future with Doug Peterson and Lovie Smith now as the Texans coach?
Well, I definitely think Jacksonville is. Jacksonville has enough talent. They do have a quarterback, which you're not sure if the Houston Texans have one yet. So they do have a leg up just in that aspect. So I'll say they will. And then Lovey's kind of establishing his culture. It all depends on what happens in this next draft, if it goes to another level for them or not, to be honest.
And overall, what's your thoughts on Mike Vrabel, the former Patriots linebacker, as the head coach?
He's by far the best coach in the AFC South, in my opinion. I mean, he gets the most out of every player. I mean, you got to think 91 players they played with last year. 91, which was an NFL record, and they still had the number 1 seed in the AFC, which is, you couldn't say that for everyone else, to be honest. So that's why I'm like, he's still the best coach in the AFC South. Some would argue he's the best coach in the AFC. I don't know if I could throw him out there and say he's the best coach in the AFC, but he is up there. So it's basically Mike Vrabel is the best coach there, the best tactician, the guy that kind of gets the most out of his team. And then the rest of the coaches there, they're still kind of trying to figure things out, which, of course, like I said, Lovey's trying to set the foundation there. Doug Peterson's kind of, trying to round up all this talent and get it focused in the right way. And then Frank Reich is, he does some decisions that make you scratch your head a lot. And this team is a lot older than what people want to think it is too. That's another thing you have to think in mind. They do have some youthful pieces, but they do have some elders out there too.
The other night I asked Parrish this as well. The 53-man roster hasn't been touched in decades. Do you feel with the amount of injuries across the league, the rosters eventually should go up to 60 instead of 53?
I think eventually they will, because of course the injuries and of course the bottom line will be affected by potentially. That's the only that would be the only way, and I think eventually it may be affected. If the bottom line is affected, then owners and players will definitely agree on extending that or making the rosters or bigger. Definitely.
The practice squad, did they increase that this year or last year?
I think it was a couple years ago they increased it, to I can't remember how many they increased it, but I think it was a couple years ago they did increase it. You are correct there.
Okay. Now, I'm old school, and I remember the days the guys played on rural bad grass fields and artificial turf at the Vet, Three River Stadium. I'm hearing Beckham Jr. saying, oh, they got to get rid of all the turf. It's all got to be grass. Do you find the turf fields are adding more injuries, or do you just think it's the nature of the game?
Well, it's a little of both. As a former college football player, I did play college football, by the way. But as a former college football player, I could tell the difference when I'm playing on grass and when I'm playing on turf. The turf grips your foot a lot more than what grass would. And by grabbing your foot a lot more, of course, when you turn and twist and things like that, you're susceptible to more injuries than what you would be on grass. But also that being said, you have to remember that guys are bigger, faster, stronger, and do a lot more different things that probably people their size probably technically shouldn't do. It just defies the laws of physics. So those combined things, that's why I say it's a little bit of both as to why the injuries happen. But that is something that you definitely need to look at in terms of the artificial surfaces compared to the injuries that happen just on grass.
Here in the CFL, there's only 9 teams, obviously, and there's only one team that has a grass field, and the other teams all have the turf, I guess, with the crush tires, the rubber tire stuff in it,
The little
and
pellets, yep.
the little pellets, yeah. And I'll be honest, if I played the game, I think I'd rather play on a grass field. Now I got to ask you, when you played college football, what position did you play and what number did you wear?
I played safety and I wore number 26. And actually, funny thing is, I actually played against Tony Romo one time when I was in college.
Awesome. I have to admit, as an Eagles fan, I couldn't stand Tony Romo as a quarterback just because we're Eagle fans. But I'm going to say this, and Tony Romo or whoever hears it, I think he's the best analyst in the NFL and one of the best in pro sports.
Yeah, he definitely has a flair for calling things right on time. I don't know how he does it, but he is almost like he's just prophetic up there at times.
What was your college football experience like playing?
But you mean playing against him or just playing in general?
Playing in general and even going against Tony Romo. I think he played for what, Eastern Illinois?
Eastern Illinois. He played for Wisconsin first, and then he transferred to Eastern Illinois. As far as everything playing against Tony Romo, I mean, you never really knew he could run and move around because he really didn't have to get with the team he had. He had a big, huge running back. This is in the FCS level, by the way. Just want to let everyone know. He had a big, huge running back. He had a very solid offensive line. They looked like they were like quintuplets. And then you also had a very solid tight end and wide receiver. So he had a dream team of a team there. So he never really had to really move quite as much. I didn't know he really could run like that until I watched one game and I was like, hold on, Tony Romo can run? I never knew he could run because he didn't have to against us because they basically dominated us. And as far as college football, I mean, honestly, I played the safety position, but I was more of a special teams guy more when I was in college than actually, a starter on the defense or things like that. But hey, it is what it is. College football is college football. And, like I try to explain to everybody, you really have to love the game to play college football because anyone that played in sports in college will tell you it's a job. It is a job. You don't have time for much anything else. That's why when the all season comes around, you see people get in trouble and all those type of things. And I'm not saying it's right, but I can understand why, because you've been on this regimen the entire season. Once you get a little freedom, you might lose it just a little bit. So I that's what I wanted to mention there.
I was going to say, and also being a student athlete as well. So you don't have a lot of time being a student athlete.
Right. That's correct. You basically your time is not your own, is what I tell a lot of people. I mean, from going to breakfast to make sure you're at breakfast, make sure you're at class, and after practice, when you go over a certain time, you have to have your classes over to go over to the football stadium to do get some film study, then go out to practice. Then after practice, you gotta hurry up, get back to the cafeteria before it closes. Then you get there, eat your food. Then you gotta go to study hall, and people don't understand. You really don't have any free time to maybe 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock that night.
And then probably by that time at night, you want to go to bed.
Well, we found some way to get some energy, but more times than not, we definitely wouldn't be trying to go to bed.
Definitely. Hey, Mike, are you okay for another 5 minutes? A couple more questions?
Sure.
Okay. This one I wanted to ask you about. Can you just tell us about your role with Black News and Views, and how did you come about that?
Well, actually, it's a website with the National Association of Black Journalists. It's kind of like their website. And what I do is, I got asked and brought on to do the sports history and Black segment, which I do that Monday through Friday. Basically kind of throw out their Black history that no one talks about, like in sports, like for example, today talked about what Nate Thurmond having a quadruple double on this day for the Golden State Warriors. And, you know, of course, that's not been done very much at all. I mean, you know, more recent times, I think people can say that I think David Robinson did one more recently, the most recent one in the NBA. I don't know. I can't remember off the top of my head right now. But, yeah, so I do those type of things, research those type of things to kind of put together to kind of bring out different facts and things like that of Black excellence in sports as well. Like, you know, of course, Simone Biles, I pointed that out with the reaching, you know, the most medals in Olympic history or gymnast history. So, yeah, I definitely enjoy doing that and enjoy bringing more information and factual information out for more people to see about my people and also just Black excellence.
Is there a website people can check this out on after the podcast is over?
Yes, it's www.blacknewsandviews.com.
Okay, definitely. And I will definitely check that out as well. This leads me to my next question is, what has been your most memorable story you've written so far, an interview you've done so far, covering the NFL, obviously, and then with the Black News and Views so far in your career?
Let's see. Most memorable story. I think I wrote one on Muhammad Ali the day he passed, actually, and I wrote that one. I didn't have to look any of that up. I was like, I knew Muhammad Ali, so I didn't know him as a person. I'm just saying I knew of him very well. So literally, I probably wrote that one in the span of maybe, you know, probably the fastest article I wrote, like 30 minutes at the most, because it just poured out of me because all the things that he stood for, all the things that he did, and all the just the showmanship and all the different things. So at that point, that one would probably be one of the ones that actually stood out to me. And as far as the interview, I would say, you know, all of them were very special to me. I don't like pointing all people that come on my show are stars of my show. That's the way I like to tell everyone they're all stars of my show. Nobody's one above the other. But I would say probably the more memorable one I had was with Jamel Hill. Now, I you know, most memorable to me because I tried so hard to make it happen, and I kept trying, and I went until like 2022, and it's like, okay, I had 3 people that I wanted to get interviews with in this year, and she was one of the people that I wanted to get an interview with, and the fact that it happened, the fact that you know, I was able to broadcast, and people were like kind of thrown off, like, wow, he really got Jamel Hill, and it kind of caught people's attention a little bit more, like, well, he's really doing this for real. You know, the people that maybe didn't think I was doing this for real kind of got their attention just a little bit more. And that was probably the most memorable interview I definitely had.
Have you ever had an interview where you're a little bit nervous at first or anything like that?
Oh yeah, I've definitely had those. You know, but the one thing that I've learned over the time is, and a friend of mine, Mr. Darrell Johnson, he said something to me, and it stuck with me throughout my entire time of writing anything, is act like you've been there before. So, you know, relax, take a deep breath, just do your thing. They are a person just like you are. They put their pants on just like you do. So, you know, I do get nervous from time to time, but the biggest thing is taking a deep breath, relaxing, and just be in the moment, not of the moment.
Great advice, and I've had guys on like Dan Shulman, Chuck Swirsky from the Bulls, Tim St. Clair, and I've been lucky. And to be honest, as much as I wanted to do broadcasting in the 20s, I don't know if I would have been ready for it because I was in so awe of these guys. I don't think I would have been able to talk to them. And your advice right there, that is great advice. Just basically talk to them like me and you were talking, or talking to a friend at a hockey or football arena, and just try to build a rapport with them as well.
Right. And the thing is, I've started to do, and kind of just explaining, but you know, a lot of people talk about making connections with people, which I totally get it and I understand, but you know, I'm kind of trying to take it a step further. make relationships or build relationships with people. Because if you build relationships with people, those go more long lasting than would a connection, because a connection can fade away. Just like it's just like a phone call or a phone, and you go through somewhere with some turbulence or a bad signal, you could lose that connection really quickly.
Absolutely. And yes, and I've been able to do that on here as well. And I've had some guys even mentor me a little bit and stuff like that. But I really appreciate you sharing your insights in that, because every time I have a guest come on, I learn something new as well.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. And I did. Oh, I forgot. I did have Trey Wingo on one time too. That was an interesting interview. That was fun. That was fun.
And one thing I've learned about this business too, doing freelance media work in the podcasting, you're going to have your successes and you're also going to have your setbacks or rejections. You just don't take them personally and just got to keep grinding away. And people will notice your work at some point.
Definitely, definitely. I mean, that's the biggest thing, is just to continue to put out product and continue to try to make your product as best you can make it. And also continue to learn and evolve, because if you're standing still, then your people are passing you by. If you're standing still working on something with the same thing, then people can potentially be passing you by. Continue to work on that and evolve and grow. And, you take yourself to heights you probably never thought you could go to. I mean, I know I've taken myself to heights I probably never thought I would be at 5 years ago.
I totally agree. And what I've been doing now with the pandemic here over a year now, I've been able to do my own live interviews. I do camera work on the side, and I also do digital writing. So I'm trying to do as much as I can, Mike. I'm sort of trying to be like one of those utility guys in baseball or in football and stuff, a jack of all trades.
Right, exactly. And the more things you can do for yourself and by yourself, the more valuable you can be.
Absolutely. And this leads to my next question, and then we'll wrap this up, Mike. What do you enjoy the most about being a freelance journalist, and what are some of the hardest aspects of the industry?
Well, the thing I enjoy most is I get to pitch what I want to write, and I
Yeah.
kind of can make it sound good. It's kind of like I get to use my marketing degree without kind of using my marketing degree. So I definitely enjoy pitching stories and kind of say, hey, this would be a good story for this. Like, for example, I do cover college football. I cover the Tennessee State University Tigers, and they are a HBCU, which is historically Black college university here in Nashville. So I was talking to someone. I was like, hey, they just won this game. They had their starting quarterback come back. How about let's write a story about, how they're, this key piece coming back helped them win this game and kind of lead it into the next game. So I did that, and she liked the idea. I got to write on it. And of course, the quick turnaround is that's the one thing nobody talks about. There's a quick turnaround for these articles, so you really don't have, as soon as the game's over, you got to get that thing out and to them probably within the next 24 hours. So that's pushing it at 24 hours. To be honest, that's actually a pretty softer deadline. But yeah, that's the one thing I do like, is pitching articles and kind of creating them and making them alive. Things that are hard is you're doing that, but you're also doing stuff on your social media, like cutting film and making little clips of the post game and stuff like that too. So you can run out of time doing that, because I mean, you can look up and it's 1 o'clock and you haven't got all the things you want to get done. So you got to decide, hey, maybe I'm gonna take this nap and then wake back up early, finish this stuff out this morning, or something. Basically making business decisions on the run, basically.
I can't speak for you, but I know there's some mornings, 2, 3 in the morning, I can't sleep, and I wake up and it's like, okay, there's something I want to write about, and then I spend most of my night staying up writing an article on something I'm passionate about.
No, I would say I used to do that a lot more when I had my own website, which it may or may not come back. I'm just gonna leave people in suspense there. But but yeah, I definitely did that a lot more, probably 4 or 5 years ago. Who knows, it may come back, but I definitely can agree with it and understand what you mean in terms of being up till 2, 3 o'clock in the morning or going to sleep. Yeah, I used to probably sleep like maybe like 3, 4 hours a night, a lot. And I probably still do sleep maybe at the most like 5 to maybe 6 hours a night at the most, pretty much.
and just continuing to post social media content with all the social media sites is a full-time job. And I don't know if you're on TikTok yet, but I even joined TikTok a year ago now, just so I can promote my show, my guests, and to get myself more exposure there as well.
Yeah, I definitely joined TikTok, but I haven't quite mastered how to use that as well. I probably need to spend more time kind of looking at it. That's on me. But definitely as far as Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, LinkedIn, those different places, I've definitely kind of mastered that a little bit more there. I wouldn't say I've mastered it, but I've kind of learned a little bit more there than I have at TikTok, which I still have some work to do there.
Hey, if this 50-year-old guy can do TikTok, anybody can. And that's the one thing Mike, I love about this industry, not just doing the podcasting and my camera work and my digital writing and live interviews, is I'm learning something every day differently. And the more I learn, the more I love it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's always room to learn, and if you're not growing, unfortunately, you're dying. Yeah, you're not growing in the field or learning more and kind of growing, as you can. And the one thing I want to mention is make sure to also soak in a lot of different things. You may not be working on something right then and there, but still take the time to learn and hear about it because you never know when you're going to need that bit of knowledge you just caught or learned or had a chance to learn.
Absolutely. And I'm very lucky right now because I'm learning the TV side and the radio side through my podcast. And I have a live audio show with the Toronto Argonauts of the CFL every Tuesday night as well. Twitter is great with that Twitter Spaces. Have you used Twitter Spaces yet?
I've tried a couple times, not necessarily the best in terms of doing my own Twitter Spaces, but maybe one of these days I'll try it again. But I'm probably better at jumping in and maybe being a co-host for somebody or something of that nature than I am actually hosting my own Twitter Spaces.
Well, if you ever decide you want to come on my Twitter space with me and just talk sports or NFL or whatever, you have an open invitation to do so.
Oh, well, thank you, thank you. Hopefully, the one thing I will say is that looking at my schedule, college basketball is getting ready to pick up in a few. And then I don't know what my schedule is going to be at that point because it's going to be super tight.
Okay, yeah, no worries. And I'll wrap this up now. Mike, any advice for those who are watching or listening to this podcast later on, looking to pursue a career in journalism? And again, where can my audience find you on social media? And what day and time normally is your podcast show on?
Well, you can find me on social media at Mike Patton 82. It's MikePatton 82 on Twitter. As far as advice I would offer, just continue to believe. A lot of people will tell you can't do this, you can't do that.
I've
Have
heard
faith
that.
that you can actually do what you're doing. Have faith that you can grow in it, and then don't get hung up on the people that are patting you on the back or lifting you up. Or patting you on the back or trying to tear you down. Just remember that, hey, it's still your dream, your fantasy, that you're trying to make reality, and just continue to put into that and pour into that, and just you never know when your opportunity is going to come either. So continue to work hard, continue to put content out there, and don't let anyone deter you from what you want to do, because ultimately the gift wasn't given um, wasn't given for you to decide how you were going to do it. Is someone is using you for your gift, and someone of a higher being, or if you believe in God, God is guiding you to what all you're doing and kind of leading you where He wants you to go.
And I was going to say,
Oh,
sorry, go ahead.
no, I forgot to mention my show. I kind of got caught up in the talking about that, and I forgot to mention my show. um, and then of course with touring the AFC South, you can find it on Sundays before the games. Talking about the AFC South teams, you can find that's the breakdown of the AFC South games. Mondays, the recaps, you can find those, and generally it's on. Generally, I'm on either Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday. I'll probably post 2 to maybe 3 shows within those days, or could be a Friday, just depending upon when the interview actually happens, and then we go from there. So it could be anywhere from Tuesday to potentially to Thursday, or maybe a Friday, but you're going to get at least 4 shows a week from me. for sure.
And you use Anchor FM as well.
Yeah.
So
I post through Anchor, so you can find Touring the AFC South on Spotify, Apple Podcast, iHeartRadio, Amazon, Google Podcast, wherever you can hear a podcast. Touring the AFC South is there. I put it there.
and I've already subscribed, by the way. I've subscribed to it. So
Oh, thanks. Appreciate it.
no problem. And before I wrap this up, it's like with me, I'm 50, but you know what? I'm just trying to prove to people as well that you can change careers at no matter what age you are in life.
Right. I mean, you can. I mean, no, there's no time limit on, when you have to be in a career or when you can change or when, no, there's only one ultimate person that makes those decisions or kind of guides that path, and he's not of the earth.
And I'm going to wrap this up. Are you a baseball fan quickly? You a baseball fan?
I'm a baseball fan, not as big as one I used to be. Probably. I'm a Cubs fan. So, when we won the World Series, that was huge for me. I do have a World Series cap here, by the way. But
awesome.
But yeah, I'm a Cubs fan. I the last couple of years I haven't quite got into it as much, but I do need to rectify that and get back into it a little bit more for my team.
I have the Padres and Astros in the World Series.
I could see that one, but I could also see the Phillies and the Yankees.
The Yankees, I'm gonna. The Yankees have great offense. I just think Houston has better pitching, and I think pitching's gonna decide that series. I gotta go Houston in 6 over the Yankees, and I think the Padres will take the Phillies down in 7 games.
We'll definitely see. I mean, the Phillies are an interesting bunch. They just started to hit their stride at the right time in the playoffs, right? So. That's usually about all it takes. So we'll see what happens. But, I could definitely see the Phillies and the Yankees, and it'd be on all East Coast World Series, which would be interesting indeed.
Definitely. Mike, I'm going to let you go. I kept you more than 45 minutes, but I was going to say thank you so much for coming on live with CDP Sports Talk here in Ontario. And if you can just give me about 10, 15 minutes, I will have this downloaded to my audio platforms, and I'll definitely send you a copy of this episode on your podcast on your page, and we'll definitely keep in touch with you on Twitter and that. And you have an open invite in the future to come back on my show again and talk some football, college basketball, or whatever.
All right. Well, thank you again for having me on. It's been a pleasure to talk sports, and have a good night.
You too. Good night, Mike, and go Birds. I'm an Eagles fan, and good luck to you. Good luck to your Tennessee Volunteers the rest of the college football season.
Thank you. Hopefully, we will be hoisting a championship. I'm just taking it one game at a time, though. I'm not going to start speaking up national titles and everything. Just taking one game at a time.
And that's my approach too with the Eagles and the Wolverines. So have a great night, Mike, and we'll talk to you. We'll keep in touch with you on social media.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks. Guys, I hope you enjoyed my podcast tonight with Mike Patton. You can check him out on Twitter at Mike Patton 82, and you can check out his podcast called the Touring AFC South Podcast Show, and it's on all those platforms that I am: Anchor FM, Apple, Google, Spotify, and Breaker, Pocket Cast, and iHeartRadio as well. So I really appreciate Mike coming on today. And guys, if you like the NFL, and I've got a special guest tomorrow night. The next live with CDP Sports Talk, sponsored by Barry Cullen Chevrolet. Wednesday, October 19th at 7 o'clock Eastern. My guest is going to be former Denver Broncos tight end and 2-time Super Bowl champion Byron Chamberlain on. He had a 9-year career in the NFL. 6 of it was Denver, 2 with Minnesota, and 1 year with the Washington Redskins before they became the Commanders. So Byron's going to come on and talk about his high school football days, college days at the University of Missouri, and his NFL days, and playing for Mike Shanahan under the ownership of the late Pat Bowlen, playing at the old Mile High Stadium, and winning back-to-back Super Bowls with John Elway, Terrell Davis, Rod Smith and that Denver Dynasty team in 97 and 98. So I hope you guys can tune into my next live with CDP Sports Talk. Again, sponsored by Barry Cullen Chevrolet, 905 Woodlawn Road West in the Guelph Auto Mall, and check out their website, barrycollins.com, for their newest and pre-owned selection of GM vehicles. And also, guys, you can pre-order the all-electric Silverado as well at Barry Collins, or give them a call at 519-824-0210. Again, thank you to Barry Collins Chevrolet for sponsoring live with CDP Sports Talk as well. And again, looking forward to my next show tomorrow, Season 4, Episode 43, with former Denver tight end Byron Chamberlain at 7 o'clock Eastern. And we're going to have a fun show with Byron, talking about his football days in high school, college, and the NFL, and also what he's been doing outside the game of football when he retired as well. So, and also, guys, just to let you know, Argo Bounce live audio show is on Twitter Spaces every Tuesday night at approximately 9 o'clock Eastern, with my co-host Nick Small, as we break down the Toronto Argonauts' previous game and preview their upcoming opponents as well. You can check me out at Chris D. Palme on Twitter. So that's the Argo Bounce live audio show every Tuesday night around 9 o'clock Eastern on Twitter Spaces as well. And before we wrap this show up, guys, like I do with all my podcasts, live with CDP podcasts, the audio version is downloaded to Google Podcasts, Anchor FM, Apple Podcasts, Breaker, Pocket Casts, Radio Public, Spotify, Castbox, and LinkedIn as well. You can also follow me on TikTok at Live with CDP. Again, that's at Live with CDP on TikTok. I post a lot of content there as well. And that's about it, guys. I hope you enjoy the baseball games. I'm just going to put this on here right now. We got the Yankees advancing to the ALCS today with their 5-1 win over the Cleveland Guardians. So the Yankees-Astros start the ALCS tomorrow night in Houston. I have Houston winning that series in 6 games over the Yankees. And we got game 1 of the National League Championship Series tonight going on between the Philadelphia Phillies and San Diego Padres. In San Diego, I have the Padres winning that series in 7 games. So I see a San Diego-Houston World Series. So, and then we got the NBA going on as well. So that's about it, guys. That's pretty well it for Season 4, Episode 42 of Live with CDP Sports Talk. Again, thank you to my guest, Mike Patton, for coming on here. And I hope you can check out his work on social media and his podcast show. Again, the Touring AFC South podcast show, weekly on all the social media platforms as well. So I guess that we'll call it a night. And I'm going to go back to watching some of the Padres Phillies game, and I look forward again to my next show, Season 4, Episode 43 tomorrow, with Byron Chamberlain, the former tight end with the Denver Broncos, and talk about his football career and life outside of football. So I hope everybody has a great night, and I want to say thank you to everybody tuning in on my YouTube channel. Please hit subscribe if you already haven't, and also on Facebook Live and on Twitter. And later, thank you to those who listen to this podcast on my audio platforms such as Apple, Google, Spotify, Anchor FM, etc. So again, thanks to Mike Patton for coming on. I hope everybody has a great night, and we'll see you guys tomorrow night at 7 o'clock with my next guest, Byron Chamberlain, 2-time Super Bowl champion with the Denver Broncos. Good night, everybody, and thanks for watching and listening to Live with CDP Sports Talk, sponsored by Barry Cullen Chevrolet.